The walk back to their quarters on the Morning Star felt different to June. The ship's corridors, which usually seemed so ordinary, now felt safe and familiar. He was tired, but it was a good tired, the kind you feel after you have done something important. His mother Soo-jin walked beside him. She was not lecturing him. She was quiet, but it was a proud, comfortable quiet. Chief Chul had gone ahead to secure the Cathar navigation node. The little orb was safe now. They reached the door to their living quarters and went inside. The main room was still neat and tidy. It was a calm contrast to the chaos of the alien market. June suddenly felt the weight of all the running and stress. His shoulders slumped. All he wanted to do was sit down. He walked over to his favorite chair and collapsed into it. He let out a long, slow breath. He looked down at his feet just because it was something to do, and that is when he saw them. On his feet were two socks. One was a dark blue sock with a red band at the top. The other was a plain black sock. They were completely different. He had been in such a hurry to chase the orb that he had not even noticed he was wearing two socks that did not match. He had failed the original mission. He never found a matching pair. He let out a small, tired laugh and pointed at his feet. "Mom," he said. "Look, the primary objective was a complete failure." Soo-jin looked at his mismatched socks. A slow smile spread across her face. It was a real warm mother's smile. It made her whole face look softer. She walked over and sat in the chair next to him. "The primary objective was technically a failure," she agreed, her voice gentle. "But you know what, June? A mission is more than just the first goal you are given. Things change. Problems happen. The real mission is about how you adapt, how you improvise, how you overcome the new challenge." She leaned forward. "You were given a simple task. It became a complicated problem. You did not panic. You used your head. You used your training. You completed the real mission. You protected the ship from an unknown variable. You recovered valuable alien property. I am very, very proud of you." Hearing those words felt better to June than any prize. He smiled back at her. For the first time, he did not think her lessons were silly or too strict. He was grateful for them. "Thanks, Mom," he said. Soo-jin stood up. "Wait here for one moment." She walked into her own bedroom and came back out a few seconds later. In her hand was a small, flat object wrapped in plain paper. She tossed it to him. June caught it. It was soft. He unwrapped it. Inside was a brand new pair of socks. They were both exactly the same. They were a nice, solid gray color. "Consider that your mission bonus," she said, her smile turning into a playful grin. "And your debriefing is tomorrow at 0800. We will review the footage from your comms unit. We can analyze what you did right and where you can improve." A few months ago, the idea of a debriefing for finding socks would have made him groan. Now it sounded kind of interesting. He wanted to see what he could have done better. "For now, soldier," Soo-jin said, her voice returning to its normal, firm tone, but with a hint of warmth underneath. "You are dismissed." June stood up. He held the new socks in his hand. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced a strange and dangerous situation, and he had won. He went to his room, Sector 7B. It was still a mess. The laundry landmines were still on the floor. The textile avalanche was still waiting to fall. But it did not seem like such a scary place anymore. It was just his room. He took off his two mismatched socks and put on the new, matching gray ones. They felt soft and warm and perfect. He sat on the edge of his bed, feeling the soft socks on his feet. He thought about the wild adventure that had started with a simple search for a pair of socks. He thought about the running, the angry cook, the tall feathered alien, and the little metal spider. His datapad buzzed. It was another message from Ji-hyun. "Hey, are you done with your tactical exercise? The flowers are still glowing." June typed his reply, his fingers moving quickly. This time he was not embarrassed. He was not making an excuse. "Mission accomplished," he wrote. "I'll tell you all about it. On my way to the Arboretum now." He put his datapad away and stood up. He walked out of his room, ready to see his friend. He was still just a boy on a spaceship. But after today, he felt a little bit more like a soldier too, and he knew that no matter what mission his mom gave him next, he would be ready for it. "Oh no," June whispered. "June, get up." "Now." His mother's voice was a sharp command in his ear. "Extract yourself from the situation. Do not engage." June scrambled to his feet. The cook was yelling at him in a language he did not understand, but the meaning was clear. He was very, very angry. June did the only thing he could think of. He put his hands together in a gesture of apology and bowed quickly. Then he turned and ran, ducking under the cook's stall table before the big alien could grab him. He heard the cook's angry shouts fading behind him. He did not stop running. He weaved through the crowd, his heart hammering against his ribs. He had lost sight of the orb again. "Mission Control, I lost it," he said, breathing hard. "And I think I made a cook very angry." "We saw," his mother said, her voice dry. "The asset signal is still moving. It is heading for the anti-grav Spire district. You can cut it off if you take the shortcut through the fungal delicacies aisle. Go right at the next big stall, the one with the spinning lights." June looked ahead. He saw the stall with spinning lights. He turned right as instructed. This new aisle was quieter and smelled strongly of earth and mushrooms. The stalls here sold strange glowing fungi and spongy-looking plants. He ran down the aisle, his eyes searching desperately. He was not just a boy anymore. He was a hunter. The thrill of the chase was starting to push out the panic. He was using his mother's lessons. He was actually doing it. Then he saw a flash of metal near a stall selling large puffball mushrooms. The orb was trying to climb up the leg of the table. It seemed interested in the mushrooms. June slowed down. He moved carefully. He did not want to scare it away again. He crept closer, step by quiet step. He was almost within arm's reach. He was so focused on the orb that he did not see the tall, feathered alien that stepped out from behind the stall. He walked right into it. The alien was very tall and slender. It looked down at June with large, dark eyes. It made a soft cooing sound, but it did not look happy. June stumbled back. "I'm so sorry." The feathered alien straightened its feathers and walked away, making a disapproving clicking sound with its beak. June turned back to the mushroom stall. The orb was gone. It had used the distraction to escape again. He felt a wave of frustration. It was so close. He wanted to scream. "Don't lose focus, cadet," his mother's voice came through. "It is heading for a quiet service alcove near the station's power conduits. It seems to be looking for an energy source. This is your best chance to corner it. Go. Now." June nodded to himself. He took a deep breath and started running again. He was tired, but he was not giving up. He was going to catch that little metal spider. June ran. His legs were tired and his lungs burned, but he did not stop. The service alcove his mother mentioned was not far. It was a quiet area used for maintenance, away from the noise and crowd of the main market. If the orb was there, he might finally be able to trap it. He turned a corner and left the bright lights and loud sounds of the bazaar behind. He was in a narrower, darker corridor. The walls were plain metal here, with pipes and wires running along the ceiling. It was much quieter. The only sound was the hum of the space station's machinery. He slowed down, his footsteps echoing softly. He did not want to scare the orb away. He crept forward, peering around another corner into the alcove. There it was. The little metal spider was in the middle of the empty floor. It had stopped running. It was standing perfectly still. One of its thin legs was extended, and a tiny, sharp tool had come out of its tip. It was trying to poke into a small access panel on the wall. A few wires were visible inside the panel. The orb was clearly trying to connect to the station's power. This was his chance. The orb was distracted. It was not running. It was focused on its task. June's mind raced. What should he do? If he just ran at it, it would hear him and skitter away again. He needed a plan. He needed a tool. He looked around. There was nothing in the alcove. No boxes, no nets, no containers he could use to trap the orb. He had nothing but the clothes he was wearing. Then he remembered his mother's lessons. One of her favorite sayings was, "A good soldier uses whatever is at hand." She had made him practice with everyday objects. A towel could be a rope. A book could be a step. A blanket could be a net. He was wearing a soft gray hoodie over his shirt. It was not a blanket, but it was close enough. Very slowly, very quietly, June took off his hoodie. He held it in both hands, making a wide open shape with the fabric. He crept closer to the orb. He held his breath. Each step was careful and silent. The orb was still busy with the wires. It did not notice him. He was now only a few steps away. He could see the tiny blue lights pulsing on its metal surface. He raised the hoodie, ready to throw it over the little robot. But the floor in the service corridor was old and uneven. As he took his final, careful step, the sole of his shoe scraped against a small raised piece of metal on the floor. It made a tiny scratching sound. It was not a loud sound, but it was enough. The orb instantly stopped what it was doing. Its legs stiffened. It seemed to listen. Then in a flash it spun around. Its body, which had no eyes, seemed to be looking right at him. For a single second, neither of them moved. The boy and the machine stared at each other in the quiet alcove. Then the orb moved. It did not run away to the side. It jumped straight up into the air. It was trying to jump over June's head and escape back into the busy market. June did not have time to think. He just reacted. His body remembered the drills his mother had put him through. She had made him practice catching fast-moving objects. She had thrown small balls at him from different angles and made him catch them in a cloth. His arms moved on their own. He did not throw the hoodie. Instead, he jumped up a little, meeting the orb in the air. He opened the hoodie wide like a net. He did not grab for the orb. He let the orb come to him. The little metal spider flew right into the center of the soft gray fabric. June collapsed to the floor, twisting his body as he fell to protect the bundle in his arms. He landed on his side with a grunt. The impact hurt his shoulder, but he did not care. He quickly gathered the edges of the hoodie, wrapping the orb tightly inside. He created a loose but secure bag. The orb was trapped. It buzzed and vibrated inside the hoodie. He could feel its little legs pushing against the fabric, trying to get out. But the cloth was too soft and flexible. The orb could not get a grip. It could not cut its way out. It was stuck. June lay on the cold floor, breathing heavily. He held the wriggling bundle close to his chest. He had done it. He had caught it. Mission control, he said, his voice shaky with relief and exhaustion. The asset is contained. I repeat, the asset is contained. There was a moment of silence from his comms. Then his mother's voice came through. It was filled with something he rarely heard, pure, undisguised pride. Well done, cadet. That was a clean extraction. Hold your position. We are coming to you. June sat up, his back against the cold wall. He kept a firm hold on the hoodie bundle. The orb inside was still moving, but more slowly now. It seemed to be calming down. A few minutes later, he heard running footsteps. His mother, Soo-Jin, and Chief Chul rounded the corner. Soo-Jin's face, which was usually so stern, broke into a wide, happy smile when she saw him sitting there with the bundle in his arms. She ran the last few steps and knelt in front of him. "June, are you hurt?" "I'm okay, Mom, just tired." She put a hand on his shoulder and squeezed. It was a warm, comforting touch. "You were brilliant. I watched your tracking data. You used every lesson perfectly." Chul stood behind her, his arms crossed. A small, rare smile appeared on his usually serious face. He gave June a nod of respect. Soo-Jin carefully took the bundled hoodie from June. She opened it just enough to look inside at the captured orb. It had stopped moving completely. The blue lights on its surface were now glowing in a slow, steady, peaceful rhythm. "It's a Cathar navigation node," she said, examining it. "A very expensive one. It must have been lost by a traitor. It's not dangerous. It was just scared and trying to find power in its way home." June felt a huge wave of relief. It was not a weapon. It was just lost, like he had been in the market. Soo-Jin handed the quiet orb to Chul, who placed it gently in a padded bag. Then she turned back to June and helped him to his feet. "Come on, soldier," she said, her voice soft. "Let's go home." As they walked back through the noisy, bright market, June felt different. He was not the same boy who had been complaining about finding socks. He stood a little taller. He had faced a real problem and solved it. He had completed the real mission. He finally understood why his mother did all those crazy exercises. They were not just about being neat. They were about being ready. Ready for anything. Even for a lost alien robot in a sock drawer. June sat in the quiet mess hall of the starship Morning Star. The ship hummed softly around him. He was eating a bowl of synthetic rice porridge. It was warm and plain. For a moment, everything was peaceful. Then his personal datapad buzzed on the table. A bright red alert flashed on the screen. It made a loud, sharp sound. June jumped a little. He put down his spoon and picked up the pad. The words on the screen were clear and urgent. Operation. Footwear cohesion. Priority. Alpha. Stand by for briefing. June sighed a very deep sigh. He slumped in his chair. He knew exactly what this meant. This was his mother's special code. It meant one thing. He needed to find a pair of matching socks. Before he could take another bite, The mess hall door slid open with a quiet hiss. His mother, Lee Soo-jin, walked in. She did not walk like a mom coming to check on her son. She walked like a soldier entering a command room. Her back was straight. Her eyes were sharp and focused. She was the chief engineer of the Morning Star, and sometimes she acted like its general too. "Good, you've seen the alert," Soo-jin said. Her voice was not loud, but it was firm. It filled the quiet room. "Mom, it's just socks," June said, his voice a little whiny. "Can't it wait until after breakfast?" Soo-jin did not answer. Instead, she tapped a command into the small device on her wrist. A glowing blue holographic image appeared above the table. It was a detailed map. June recognized it immediately. It was a schematic of their living quarters. His bedroom was labeled as Sector 7B. "Listen up, Cadet," Soo-jin began. She always called him Cadet during these exercises. "This is your mission. The objective is the retrieval of 2 identical thermal regulation foot garments from Sector 7B. June just stared at the hologram. He could not believe this was happening. Soo-jin pointed a finger at the map. A red dot appeared near his door. "The environment is hostile. Our latest scans show clutter levels in your sector are at 78%. This creates significant operational hazards." Her finger moved to a large, blurry area on the map labeled Textile Avalanche Zone. "This pile of books and data slates is unstable. One wrong move and it will come down on you. It will create noise and block your escape route." Then she pointed to a scattered area near his bed. "Here, we have laundry landmines. These are dirty clothes and other items. Tripping on one could cause a fall. It could also reveal your position." June almost laughed. "My position to who?" "There's no one in my room." Soo-jin ignored him. She finally pointed to the space under his desk. "This is your final obstacle. The furniture choke point. You will have to navigate this low-clearance area to reach the primary objective location, the sock drawer." June put his head in his hands. "It's a desk. I just have to crawl under it." At that moment, the mess hall door opened again. Park Chol, the ship's security chief, walked in. Chol was a big man, quiet and serious. He nodded once at Soo-jin. "Chief Chol will be your mission control for this operation," Soo-jin announced. "You will report to him via your comms unit. He will monitor your progress and advise you on any anomalies." Chol walked over and stood next to Soo-jin. He looked at the holographic map of June's messy room. He studied it carefully, as if it were a map of a dangerous alien planet. He looked at June and gave a slow, solemn nod. It was a nod that said, "This is a very important job." June felt all his hope disappear. There was no getting out of it. When his mother decided something was a tactical exercise, it became one. There was no arguing. "Your mission begins in 5 minutes, Soo-jin said. She shut off the hologram. "Eat the rest of your breakfast. You need fuel for the task ahead. Remember, Cadet, proper preparation prevents poor performance." June looked down at his bowl of porridge. He was not hungry anymore. He pushed the bowl away. Soo-jin and Chul left the mess hall talking in low voices. June heard his mother say, "Good training for situational awareness." June stayed in his seat for a full minute. He thought about just hiding in the mess hall, but he knew it was useless. His mother would just find him and the mission would become even harder. He had to do it. He stood up and walked out of the mess hall. The corridors of the Morning Star were bright and clean. Crew members, both human and alien, walked past him. They were going to do real jobs. He was going to look for socks. He reached the door to his family's quarters. He pressed his hand against the scanner. The door slid open. He stepped inside. The main living area was neat and tidy. His mother kept everything in its place. But the door to his room, Sector 7B, was closed. He took a deep breath. He clicked the small comms unit pinned to his shirt. "Mission Control, this is Cadet. I am at the entrance to Sector 7B, ready to begin the operation." Chul's voice came back, clear and calm. "Copy that, Cadet. Proceed with caution. We are monitoring. Report when you have visual on the primary objective." June opened his door. It was, as the scans had shown, a disaster zone. Clothes were on the floor. Piles of books and data slates sat on every flat surface. A model starfighter he was building was half finished on his bedside table. He stepped inside. The door closed behind him. He was in the hot zone. He carefully stepped over a pile of shirts, the first of the laundry landmines. He moved along the wall. avoiding the teetering stack of books his mother had called the textile avalanche zone. He moved slowly, just like she had taught him. He looked where he was putting his feet. He reached his desk. This was the furniture choke point. He got down on his hands and knees. The space under the desk was dark and full of dust. He crawled through it, bumping his head slightly on the desk above. He came out on the other side. There it was, the sock drawer. He felt a small sense of victory. He had made it to the objective without setting off any landmines or causing an avalanche. Now all he had to do was find 2 socks that looked the same. How hard could it be? He reached out and pulled the drawer open. It was a jumbled mess. There were socks, but they were all mixed up. There were blue ones, black ones, striped ones, and long thermal ones. But every single one was alone. There was not a single pair to be found. June's shoulders slumped. He started pulling socks out one by one. A blue sock with a red band. A black sock with a gray toe. Another blue sock, but this one was a darker blue. Nothing matched. Mission control, he said into his comms, his voice full of defeat. The primary cache is a bust. I repeat, the primary cache is a bust. There are no matching pairs. There was a short silence from Chul. June could imagine him and his mother looking at each other. Understood, Cadet. Chul's voice came back. You're authorized to proceed to secondary search locations. Check under the bed and the closet floor. Report any findings. June sighed again. The mission was not over. It was getting worse. He looked at the dark space under his bed. It was even more frightening than the space under his desk. Who knew what was under there? Just then his datapad vibrated again. It was a different sound. A message. He pulled it out. It was from his friend Ji-hyun. Hey June, I'm in the Arboretum. The new glowing flowers are blooming. It's so pretty. Do you want to come see? Yoon felt a pang of sadness. He really liked Ji-hyun. He really wanted to go see the glowing flowers with her. But he was stuck in his room on a sock-finding mission. He typed a reply with his thumb. Can't right now, sorry, I'm undergoing a tactical exercise. A few seconds later, her reply came. It was just a laughing emoji. Haha, you're so weird. Okay, maybe later. June put his datapad away. He felt his face get warm. She thought he was joking. He wished he was. The pressure was now even higher. He could not fail a mission as simple as this. Not with his mom and Chul watching. And not with Ji-hyun waiting for him. He got back down on the floor. He looked at the dark space under his bed. The mission was no longer just about socks. It was about his pride. He took a deep breath and got ready to crawl. June was on his hands and knees, staring into the darkness under his bed. This was the secondary search location. Mission Control had told him to look here. Dust bunnies floated in the dim light like tiny fuzzy ghosts. He could not see much. He would have to go in. He lay flat on his stomach and began to army crawl. The floor was cool against his chest. He moved forward slowly, one arm after the other. The space under his bed was a forgotten land. He saw a lost pen, a few food wrappers he thought he had thrown away, and a single crumpled black sock. His heart jumped for a second. He grabbed it. But it was just a normal, boring sock. He had no other sock to match it with. It was useless. He pushed it into his pocket and kept crawling. He was looking for its partner. He moved deeper. The space got darker. His fingers brushed against something soft and sticky. He pulled his hand back quickly. It was just an old piece of candy. He wiped his hand on his pants, feeling disgusted. Then his fingers touched something else. This thing was not soft or dusty. It was smooth and hard and round. It felt like a large metal ball. He wrapped his hand around it. It was about the size of a plum. He pulled it out from under the bed and into the light. He sat up, his back against his bed, and looked at what he found. It was a perfect sphere. It was made of a dark silvery metal. It was very heavy for its size. On its surface there were tiny lines that glowed with a faint pale blue light. The lines formed patterns he had never seen before. They looked like alien writing. June turned the orb over in his hands. He tried to remember where it came from. He had a lot of hobby projects. Maybe it was a part for his model starfighter, but it did not look like any part he owned. It felt important. It felt expensive. He was so focused on the orb that he forgot about the socks. He forgot about mission control. He was just a boy with a strange, cool-looking ball. Then his mother's voice came through his comms unit. It was sharp and clear. It broke his concentration. Cadet, we are reading an unknown energy signature from your location. It is very close to you. Identify it now. June's eyes went wide. Energy signature? He looked down at the orb. The glowing lines on its surface seemed to be getting brighter. A low hum started to come from it. The hum vibrated softly in his hands. Mission control, June said, his voice shaky. I found something. It's a metal ball. It was under my bed. Describe it, Sujin's voice commanded. Before he could answer, the orb suddenly felt warm. The pale blue light flashed brightly, making June blink. For a single second, a complicated map made of stars and lines projected into the air above the orb. It looked like a navigation chart. Then it vanished. June gasped. It just showed a map. Then the orb did something else. A small thin beam of red light shot out from its top. The beam was not hot. It did not burn anything. It hit the wall of his room and left a small, glowing red dot. June was so surprised and scared that his hands opened. He dropped the orb. It hit the floor with a heavy metallic clunk. He expected it to break, but it did not. Instead, a small panel on its side slid open. 4 thin, mechanical, spider-like legs unfolded from inside. They were made of the same dark metal. The legs tapped on the floor, testing it. Then with a quick, skittering movement, the orb righted itself. It was no longer a ball. It was a little metal spider. June stared, his mouth hanging open. He could not move. The orb spider took a second to orient itself. Then it started to move. It scurried quickly across his bedroom floor. It headed straight for the gap under his closed door. No, June shouted. He scrambled to his feet. June, report, what is happening? His mother's voice was loud in his ear. The asset is mobile, June yelled, his heart pounding in his chest. He ran to the door. I repeat, the asset is mobile. It's heading for the central corridor. He yanked his door open and looked out. The little metal spider was already halfway down the hall. It moved incredibly fast, its legs a blur. It was running away. June's simple mission to find socks was over. Now he had a new mission. He had to catch that thing before it got lost or caused trouble. He sprinted out of his room and into the corridor. He ran after the skittering orb. He could hear his mother's voice in his comms talking to Chol. Chief, lock down the corridor leading to the cargo bay. June, do not lose sight of it. We are tracking its signal, but visual confirmation is critical. June ran as fast as he could. The orb was small and fast. It zipped around a corner. June followed, his shoes slapping against the metal floor. A few crew members turned to look, confused by the boy running full speed down the hall. The orb was heading for a large open doorway at the end of the corridor. The sign above the door said, Zimarian Bazaar, Docking Umbilical 3. The Morning Star was docked at a large space station. The bazaar was a huge, busy market inside the station. It was filled with aliens and shops. It was the most crowded, chaotic place on the entire station. If the orb got in there, he would never find it. Mom, it's going into the bazaar, June shouted into his comms. He heard his mother curse, something she almost never did. June, you have to stop it before it gets through that door. Do not let it enter the bazaar. June put on a burst of speed. He was only 10 steps behind the orb. Then 5, he was almost there. He dove forward, his hands reaching out to grab the little metal spider. But at the last second, the orb jumped. It leaped straight into the air, cleared the doorstep, and landed on the other side. It disappeared into the crowd of the Zimarian Bazaar. June slid across the smooth floor, stopping just at the doorway. He looked up. He was too late. He was at the entrance to a giant, noisy, colorful market. He could see hundreds of different aliens. He could hear strange music and loud bargaining in languages he did not understand. Smells of weird food filled the air. The little orb was gone. It had vanished into the crowd. His mission had just become 1,000 times more difficult. He was not in the safe, familiar halls of his ship anymore. He was on an alien space station and he had to find a tiny running robot. He stood up, brushing off his pants. He took a deep, shaky breath. Mission control, he said, his voice tired. The asset has entered the Zimarian Bazaar. I have lost visual. I am going in after it. He stepped through the doorway and into the chaos. The noise of the Zimarian Bazaar hit June like a physical wave. It was a wall of sound. There were hooting calls, deep rumbling voices, and the high-pitched chirping of creatures he could not see. The air smelled of spicy oil, something like rotten fruit, and a sharp electrical smell. Strange lights flashed from shop stalls, hurting his eyes. He stood just inside the entrance, frozen for a moment. The crowd was a river of different bodies. Tall, thin aliens with long necks moved next to short, wide creatures that rolled on round feet. How was he supposed to find one little metal ball in all this? His mother's voice in his ear was calm but urgent. "June, we still have its signal. It's moving to your left." Deeper into the market. "Go now." June started to push his way into the crowd. It was hard. Everyone was bigger than him. He bumped into a tall being covered in fine blue fur. It chittered at him angrily. June mumbled an apology and kept moving. "Mom, there are so many people," he said, his voice tight with panic. "I can't see anything." "Don't look with just your eyes, cadet." Sujin's voice came back firm and clear. "Use your training. Look for the pattern in the chaos. Look for movement that is out of place." June tried to calm down. He remembered one of his mother's exercises. She had made him find a single red leaf in a pile of multicolored ones. He had to see what did not belong. He stopped trying to shove through the crowd. He stood on his toes and scanned the floor ahead. He looked for a quick, skittering movement. He looked for a flash of smooth metal. There, between the many legs of the crowd, he saw it. A quick silvery blur darting under a cart full of glowing crystals. It was heading towards a part of the market filled with food stalls. "I see it," June yelled. "It's going towards the food area." "Follow it, but be smart." Chul's voice now low and steady. "Do not cause a disturbance. A panic will make your mission impossible." June started moving again. This time he did not just push. He watched the flow of the crowd. He saw a gap between a large, scaly alien and a group of chatting humans. He slipped through it. He moved like water, just as his mother had taught him in their crowd navigation drills. The orb was fast. It zipped around legs and under tables. June had to keep his eyes locked on it. He ran past a stall selling live, wriggling worms in a tank. He dodged around another stall with hanging silks that felt wet to the touch. The orb scurried right under the table of a food vendor. The vendor was a large, four-armed creature cooking something on a hot plate. The little robot ran straight through a puddle of oily liquid on the floor. One of the orb's thin metal legs slipped in the oil. It wobbled. It tried to correct itself, but it was moving too fast. It spun in a clumsy circle, its legs scrambling for grip. This was his chance. June lunged forward. He got down on his knees and reached out both hands to cup the little robot. He was so close. But just as his fingers were about to close around it, the orb found its footing. It shot forward again, directly between the legs of the four-armed cook. The cook, who was focused on his food, suddenly felt something tap against his leg. He looked down and saw the strange metal spider. He let out a surprised roar and jumped back. One of his forearms, holding a spatula, swung wildly. The spatula, covered in sizzling food, hit a stack of metal bowls next to the stall. The bowls crashed to the ground with an enormous clattering noise. Everyone nearby turned to look. The cook was now shouting and pointing at the orb, which was already escaping. Then he saw June, who was still on his knees right next to his stall. The cook's angry eyes locked onto June. He thought June was the one who had caused the mess.